All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Andrew Broussard Watercolors. If you're new to this channel, you'll know that. Oh, let me see. Sorry, I'm like just starting this video off terribly. If you're new to this channel, just a heads up, this was filmed live. So I take a few minutes to do the setup, wait for people to come into the chat and ask questions and whatnot. So if this is on YouTube or Patreon, feel free to jump ahead until the painting starts. So until then, I'm just going to get my video feed set up and my palette set up, and then we'll start painting a Gothic structure. Okay. That note, so I have a Cheapo Depot tablet, like a $35 tablet, that I like to have set up on the side for me to watch the live stream and see if anybody comes in with any questions or comments. I might have to clean the screen protector or the screen on this one. I have it just covered in paint splatters. Let's see. It may eventually be time to upgrade to a newer one. So browser. That's loading. So it says that I'm offline, but it should be. Okay, now I'm live. Okay. So we got that set up. Let's take our large hake brush and soak our paper. I like to paint wet and wet, or at least to start the painting off in that fashion. So this is just a large hake. By the way, this is a quarter sheet of Stonehenge Aqua. And what this does is the paper gets soaked up, it stretches, and then I use the binder clips to flatten it out. And then it also gives me the whole wet and wet beginning, where it gives a nice soft diffused effect. Alright, video feed looks good. Let's look at our palette. This is a Butcher Tray palette that I got from Michael's. Probably in the $5 to $10 range. I think this is like kind of like a metal with an enamel on it. I know they do sell plastic ones. I think Hobby Lobby does the plastic ones. I'm not sure. And you should be able to also find these online. And as you can tell, I have my pigments around the edge, mix in the center, and it just works really well. I like to take a spray bottle to kind of activate some of the paints on there. Let's see if we need to add any paints. Actually looking pretty good. I might use some Prussian Blue, so I'm going to get that on the palette. For the most part, I'll let you know what colors I utilize. I try to stay within pretty standard colors, just in case anybody's following along as a tutorial. And you're always welcome to follow along with any one of these videos, and you're also welcome to you know, turn around and sell it if somebody says, hey, I'd like to buy that from you, so that you can you know, buy some more art supplies. Yep. So once again, you know, so this is filmed live, so I may seem like I'm talking to random people. Phil just entered the live chat. How you doing, dude? All right, let me turn the sound off of my phone so there's no bedinging. All right, so I've done the Gothic structures in the past. Usually they're just kind of loosely based off a random photo, and then from there I'll just kind of play around with it. There was one that popped up on Google, like I literally just typed in church ruins. We might use this one. Let's see. We'll look at something like this. Okay. So it's going to be loosely based off of just a random photo off of Google. Apparently Europe is littered with old ruins, and in fact in the late 1700s, 1800s, it was not uncommon. It was actually like the cool thing to do was to have ruins built on your property, and which now they're still ruins. I mean, they're now 200 years old, but back then the cool thing was to have that done. In fact, and I've mentioned this before, I read one story where a gentleman moved out of his house, his mansion, had a new house built alongside the old one. Then the old one essentially demolished in such a fashion to make it look antiquated and ruinous. So this is raw sienna. I'm using a medium hake brush. This is the Ranson hake brush. Just kind of getting a little color tone in there. Then we'll formulate our ideas. I think very, very soon I'm going to wind up switching to a new hake and retire this one, as it's getting quite stiff on the inside. Even though it just loosened up just now, I feel like maybe it was listening and realized that its days are unfortunately numbered. But it's been used almost daily for at least 2 years, I think. It'll be sad. It's not like I'm going to throw it away. I'll probably put it on the wall or something. So this is the Prussian Blue. It's been making its way into my palettes after watching a gentleman, Eric Koppel, oil painting a scene in the vein of the Hudson River Valley movement. And it seems to be good for a gradation up into the sky into an ultramarine. Also, I don't know if I had mentioned the whole Gothic ruinous structure kick for me stemmed from looking at a painter, Caspar Friedrich, a painter from the early 1800s in Germany, Austria, Germany. I'm not sure what it would be considered at this point, or at that point in time. And it seemed as if he had like a Prussian blue gradient in his sky. Just kind of playing around with where I want the horizon line. Let's get some Payne's gray in here. Now, with wet and wet, you don't need to stress out too much about the pigment load. If you have a lot of pigment that's going down with Payne's gray, it's going to lighten up. Then I'm mixing the raw sienna and ultramarine for a kind of muted grass color. Grab some more raw sienna. I'll even grab some lemon yellow without cleaning off the brush, just to kind of throw in tones. Okay, so if we want, we can play around with cloud structures, and a nice simple go-to cloud mix is Payne's Gray and alizarin. There's definitely a lot of different ways to watercolor paint clouds, especially in the fast and loose style. We can come in this fashion with a mixture like this. We could also come in with a paper towel and lift out highlights. If we wanted white fluffy clouds, we could use that as our like a negative space there. A lot of different things you can do. In the oil painting, I've been having a little bit of difficulty with clouds, but I think it's the going from one medium to another. And I have some oil painting landscapes in the works, but I've almost resigned oil painting to a lot more still life work as opposed to landscape. We'll see. I usually, especially this summer, I was trying to film everything that I painted and kind of talk through it and go through all the experiments, but I am having trouble with a setup for oils and the best way to film that. But if that's something you'd like to see, just let me know and I'll get it figured out. One general trick in regards to clouds and perspective, lower to the horizon would be further away. They're going to be smaller, thinner clouds in general. And then as it goes higher up in the sky, it's coming up closer to you, so they're going to be the bigger clouds in those areas. So keep those type of things in mind, and sometimes you might have to use your artistic license in order to push it the way you want to get those changes and those perspectives to take place. So I think we'll do the horizon line about here. Structure-wise, I'm going to have the back of this ruinous church in this region. We're going to have a wall coming up here. Back of the structure, we'll have it come up high, and we'll have part of a wall come here, and then we'll have hedges in this area. Don't be afraid to draw on the watercolor on the paper, like I was just doing, marking things out. A lot of times you can erase or backtrack anything you do within watercolor in the fast and loose approach. This wasn't cleaning the brush right here, and this was adding a little bit of did I add light red oxide. Light red oxide, I like to utilize it to with the ultramarine blue to push back a distant purple, aerial perspective purple. Here's the hedge on this side, kind of just marking it in, and then we'll come back over it. This is going to hold truer to the picture than anything that I've probably done recently. But I'm just using it kind of just for the compositional shape. In the wet and wet stage, it's very helpful to take your darks and put those in for those shadow areas. That'll help kind of ground those spots and also diffuse the shadows. Now, if you do follow these tutorials and these videos, you'll know how much I hate lemon yellow. Not sure if it's the quality of the brand or something like that, but it immediately pushes towards green for me. Even if this brush was completely clean and I was just like, let me grab some lemon yellow, it just turns green for me. But here I want it for a green aspect, so it's working out. But I do have a lot of difficulty with that one. I think we'll put some background tree structures in before we start shaping out this building. This is a Paul Rubens squirrel mop, size 6. This was purchased off of Amazon, and about $20. It's a new to me type of brush. I've always looked at squirrel mops from time to time, and there's some YouTube painters that utilize them like really well, and they're super beautiful. And a coworker, or a former coworker of mine, who she does flower paintings and all that, had talked about getting some new brushes in. I think they were Da Vinci brushes, and she had mentioned the Paul Rubens one that she had been using, and then she had sent me a link on Amazon, and I saw the $20 price tag, and I was like, you know what, I'm at that point where I'm willing to bite the bullet and try it out, you know. And this is my second time using it. The video before this on YouTube is a demo, just me solely using it, just to get an experiment with it and see what type of textures I can get. In this painting, I'm just going to solely use it as more of a rigger liner calligraphy type brush to get variations in my lines and create trees. A handful of YouTube painters that I could mention that I know that I believe use brushes like this. Alan Owen, Lois Davidson, I believe, uses brushes, squirrel mops. I'm not sure if David Usher does, but David Usher is a very good YouTube painter as well, in the fast and loose style. Those are all people to check out. There's a lot of little intricate branch work in this picture, and with painting you can decide, you know, you make your decision how much you want going on in it. You can leave it just like this, or you can go in and play around. This is number 1 rigger, My brush combinations originally consisted of just the hake and the number 1 rigger. Then it became the hake, the number 1 rigger, and the number 4 rigger. By the way, this is what brand is this? This is Silver Black Velvet. I had added in the number 4 just because of the juicier quantities of water that I can get to hold. It was just easier for a little bit more washes with it. Then the squirrel mop, the number 6 that I was using a moment ago, has started to make an appearance, and we'll see what happens in the long run for this. I'll probably come back to those and add more to it, but I want to now start modeling my ruins. So here I'm going to use burnt sienna and sap green, ultramarine. Raw sienna, ultramarine. You get kind of a gray. And I could also allow raw sienna in it as well and play around with those different tones. This back of this church ruin, I'll bring it to about here. It's going to come here and there. Now, one thing I'd like to point out is that I didn't draw anything beforehand to mark anything out, but a lot of people do that. This is that front wall, and you're more than welcome to sketch beforehand. It's just different approaches for different folks. There's no right or wrong way. In fact, the burnt sienna ultramarine combination, even though it's like the super common combination, I first heard of it in videos from Rick S on YouTube. I mention him every video, but I am never able to pronounce his name, so just go into Google, YouTube, do watercolor tutorial, Rick S. He has free videos, and I believe he is moving more in the direction of classes, so they do cost money, but he is a amazing painter, very good at explaining stuff. I've never taken his classes, just watched his tutorials, and the reason I bring him up is because I was using a mix that I had first learned from him, even though it's, like I said, a basic mix. But also, he draws in before he paints, I believe. I mixed a little bit of that raw sienna with light red oxide. I could probably mix it better, and this would be kind of a more, you can use it for a terracotta color, but I'm trying not to get it too terracotta-y, more brick. Just using a little bit of perspective for that shadow the wall has, or the growth around it, to recede back. Dry brushing to get the floor texture. And we come to the bottom of the back wall. Trying to get a wetter mix for back here. Actually, this is nice. This brush is nice for laying down these combinations. Looks like my paper is drying relatively fast. Sometimes that seems to happen. I'm not sure if it has to do with the atmospheric properties of the room that I'm painting in. I'm located in America, in the southern part of the United States, and some people from other countries in the art groups will say that they currently are having a little bit of difficulty watercolor painting due to maybe like the temperatures in the area that they're in and how it affects their flow of the watercolors and the drawing, which is interesting. Okay, so there's 3 stone structures within this window, or not so much structures as they are just, I guess it'd be between the panes of glass. Okay, so they have come from the side, come from the side. This one crosses over to the middle. The top one crosses over to the other side. This one crosses over to the middle. This one crosses over to the other side. I'd say if you have a light hand, you could probably get thinner lines than I'm getting. You could also use the rigger for something like that. While this is wet and wet, I could charge in different colors. I don't want it to be just one wash. Rigger might be easier to get more solid, comfortable lines here. However, that's another one where it's up to you and what you prefer. In fact, in this wet and wet, take the hake, I can feed in. Marks as well, so the hake can be utilized. Very quick marks, and if it's wet and wet, they'll diffuse a little bit more. Okay, let's bring this wall up. should have put that tree a little bit higher, but that's fine. I was just going to go right over it. Raw sienna and light red oxide. A little bit of ultramarine in there. So this guy comes out towards us, so since he's getting closer, perspective-wise, he's getting bigger. He is back further, so it's going to be about here. And there's some windows along this wall. Perspective, it's going to go like that. Now I'm just trying to get water and pigment down so I can charge into all these. And then this side will go back a little bit. Sit in place. Payne's Gray, Ultramarine, going a little bit more bluish than the stone color. Excuse me. Raw sienna mixed into that. Payne's Gray, just going for a dark to feed on the inside of this window. Dark on the inside. I do Payne's Gray and Raw Sienna, which may give kind of like an olive green. I might have to grab some of our lemon yellow in there. It's a nice juicy wash to start getting more of a closer element over here. Darker to stop the eye from going off the page. Darker at the base. Do the same concept on this side. Have that overgrowth start to come up and over. I like the squirrel mop as a potential replacement for the number 4. Because as you can see, I'm able to do a lot more with it. Feels like I'm cheating on the number 4 because I love the number 4. But the number 6 squirrel mop is really nice. Golly. And I'm not like, I wasn't like paid to say that or anything like that. I'm just saying like, oh my God, I'm enjoying this. Wet and wet, just trying to add diversity within it, just so that we can get, just to make it interesting. We just don't want like a flat, solid wall. It's made up of stone. It has different markings on it, different textures. Use it to dry brush. Dry brush this effect for a little bit of foliage back here, but I'm going to use the number 1 to get us a lot more twigs and whatnot. So I'm just very lightly letting the side touch. Okay, before I do a dry off, let me just play around a little more wet and wet, and then we'll I don't think I want this line to be perfect at the top of this wall. Let's do a dry off, and then we'll see what needs to be done. go grab something right fast. I am back. All right, so we're talking these trees in the back. I'm going to use a lighter mix for them to help them recede, but I just want a lot of branches in them. That's just, in this case, just an artistic choice. What you want to think about is what would actually be seen versus where you want to draw the eye's attention, how much the eye can focus on one thing, etc. You know, so oftentimes you won't need to have all these branches and twigs, but in this scenario, I'm making the executive decision to do it. Now with branches, something that I'm always iterating and reiterating is that you can trace over the ones that are previously there if you want to darken them, or you can go alongside and take different routes in order to build up a density in that region. And the whole purpose of that is come up over here, yeah, to build that density, build up depth, etc., rather than getting the painting just to look flat, or your tree to just look flat. As you'll notice with the number 1 rigger, I'm constantly having to re-grab more water and pigment, and that's just the nature of the small rigger, I guess. If anybody has any alternatives to that, let me know. This is the Silver Black Velvet, number 1. Like I had said earlier, the number 4 made its way into the rotation for the higher, capacity of pigment and water, and then the squirrel mop has been making its way in. Stop the eye back here. Let me grab the number 1 so that you guys can, sorry, the number 4, so you all can see the variation, the difference between the number 1 and the number 4. You can probably see right there me mixing it, how much more I can get, and now I can take over that whole trunk right there with great ease. So there's a big difference between just the 1 and the 4. Oh, something else I wanted to show you. So I was on Amazon, and I learned this trick off of somebody from Twitch, and he was oil painting. There's a tool called Artist Mall, MALL, AHL. And what it is, it's a long dowel, long stick, usually wrapped on the end with maybe like a leather bag or something like that. And the purpose is to not like mar the painting or the surface, etc. Anyway, and what it's there for is for you to rest this long stick on either your table, on the edge of the canvas, on the edge of whatever, and then you can then rest your hand on top of that. So what he had done, because for some reason they're expensive. You know, you take a dowel, you add something to the end potentially, and then say it's for art, and suddenly, you know, it's more, twice the price or 3 times the price, you know. So what he had went with for a mall, and he had mentioned a selfie stick is what he was going to wind up getting and trying that out, but he had grabbed one of those telescoping meaning that the metal sits in on itself and folds in and out like that, a telescoping magnet that's used to pick up things that have fallen on the floor in spaces you can't get. You know, if you're a mechanic and something falls in a small spot, you can use that to reach in and pick it up. So I looked on Amazon, and they had different ones. They had ones that would pick up, I guess, a 5-pound object, a 10-pound object, and a 15-pound object. The difference between those is obviously the difference in what it's able to pick up, but I didn't know if there was any difference in the actual the strength of the rest of the metal. But I went with the largest, the 15-pound, thinking that hopefully it'll, you know, be stronger. Anyway, so if I needed to go in for fine detail, okay, so now I know it sticks to this. I can, let me just mix it up just to show you. If I wanted to get in here, I can now rest my hand a lot easier, and it's a lot more steady. I have very shaky, I don't have super shaky hands, but I don't have the control that some people do. So having something like this is nice to rest on. And this was about $6, $7 off Amazon. I'm sure you can find it at Lowe's or Walmart or any of those other locations. But Harbor Freight, probably Tractor Supply and all that. One thing that I do recommend, I wiped mine with a paper towel. It might have been better if I had taken some sort of mineral spirits or something to wipe it down, because being that it's metal that's been manufactured, there's I felt and I smelt manufacturing oil on it, so I had to wipe that down because I didn't want that oil to make its way onto my painting surface. So that's something for you all to keep in mind. Let's do a little close right there. You see how I'm able to rest my hand on it, and I'm not dragging my hand on the painting, and I'm not pulling, you know, messing up the paint. And to give you a point of reference, right now, so I'm like about 6 foot, 230 pounds, 240 pounds. You know, and I'm heavy-handed, and I'm just to give you an idea how much I'm able to rest my whole hand on it, and I'm able to push down on it. There's some bowing taking place and probably shaking of the camera right now, but just to show you how sturdy it can be if I was to just solely drop all my weight onto it. Though the magnet is a little bit of troubling right there. You could dry brush the effects of stone. Or, like, you know, since there's so many different ways to go about doing all this, you could sit there and do all the stones if you want. and that's where, you know, personal style and personal preference like come into play. So this is just to demonstrate the fast and loose style, but if you find that it's not for you, that's totally fine. Just mixing in the dark with the hake brush. For this head right here. And since it's dry, the goal is to get more of a textured effect to allow those areas to pop forward. Dry brush. And feed a little bit of light red oxide in there. And there's a whole bunch of stuff I could have done. I could have taken the card to, like a credit card, to scrape in. I could have taken the a razor blade for textures. There's a lot of different things you can do. And what I'm trying to prevent doing is just having straight lines and solid masses of color. And the goal is, hopefully, the goal is a little bit obvious that I'm trying to get textured effects and just to make the scene more interesting by having that. What I was thinking to make this interesting was to add steps here and add little altar and a cross right in there, you know, being the church. That. Then I might do a procession of people. So let me do a dry off real quick. So if you had headphones on, just take them off. I'm thinking a procession of cowled people, which has been very common in these works of art. Here, 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 here. I separate the distance. It's going to get smaller, the distance between them. The headline, the line of the head is relatively going to be the same, the top of the head, except for the one up here. Let's switch to a number 1. This is actually another great time to use our maul. Watch it stick to everything. Nope, good. All right, so up here, so kind of like a funerary procession. So they're in robes, they're standing 2 by 2. This is an element that I'm taking from the Caspar Friedrich painting that I alluded to at the beginning. And I feel that adding like people like this, little elements, helps put size perspective into place and that everything seems super large. And the super large gives that romantic Gothic feel. It also alludes to a concept of the sublime. Sublime is where you're dealing with thoughts and ideas that are larger than life. And if you think about it, the church and the structures were made to inspire awe and power. I would think, you know, with the size and all that, and the color and the sorry, I trailed off thought-wise. Okay. Now for a few little finishing touches. Let's get this dark in here to help separate that. So I want this edge of that wall to pop out better. And of course, at this point, it's kind of just nitpicking, pushing things around, playing around with stuff, playing with sizes. And textures. should have warned you. Let me, I think one thing that's hurting a little bit is this yellow right here. Old sienna. Okay, here's the dry off. I think we might be good to put a mat over it and see what it looks like. And if anything needs to be fixed, I'll fix it off camera. But let's see what it looks like. And of course, you know, I hope you enjoyed, and please like, subscribe, follow. And if you would like to consider supporting me, I have the Patreon account linked below. And that would be greatly appreciated. Anywho, feel free to follow along. I would love to see your results, and I will talk to you all soon. Have a great day.